Sister B.I. invited a doctor to give a talk on this topic is because she's hoping that I will share my personal experience as a doctor. So we are not going to just touch on the Buddha's teaching. I'm also going to share with you some of my personal experience in my own personal life, as well as patients that I have seen. You know, of course, I will not tell you their names, patient confidentiality, but I will share with you some interesting cases that will hopefully help us to understand a little bit more about the kind of illness that we have. And we are not just talking about physical illnesses, okay? Because, in fact, I'm seeing more and more patients with emotional illnesses and mental illnesses. Mental illnesses here, I don't refer to just people who go mad, but depression, you know, under stress, things like that, anxieties, okay? So we'll talk a lot more about that. And there's a reason why we will talk a lot more about that. I will tell you later. Right. Now, having talked about suffering as the or sickness as the first part of the Buddha's teaching, which involves the First Noble Truth, then it goes to show that since sickness is also suffering, the cause of sickness must be the Second Noble Truth, which is craving. Because the Buddha says craving is the cause of suffering, and disease or sickness is suffering. So craving must be a cause of our diseases. When we look at it analytically or in a more detailed manner, then actually it is true. We crave for a lot of things in life. For example, let's take a look at food. A lot of people like to take too much, eat too much. And because they take too much, they crave for too much food, they grow fat. And obesity now is a major illness in this world, especially in the Western world. Okay. Some people like to take sweet things, so they make their diabetes worse, or they make their diabetes uncontrollable, and that leads to all kinds of illnesses, complications as well, including damages to the kidney, which is one of the worst complications ever for the diabetes. In fact, we all know, as doctors, we all know that if you have diabetes and you don't control it, within 20 years, your kidney will fail and you will be going on dialysis. If we already know this, then we should know from early on that we need to control what we eat. Okay. Some people like salty food. Salty food gives rise to high blood pressure. If you take too much salty food over a long period of time, then you get high blood pressure. Again, the complication of high blood pressure is many. You can get stroke. You can get heart attack or heart failures. Okay. You can also get kidney problems. One of the complications of high blood pressure is kidney failure as well, just like diabetes. Again, you will get it not immediately, but maybe 20 years later if it is not controlled. If it is controlled, then you don't have the problem. That's why we treat, to control it. Okay. Then there are also people who love fatty food. Nasi lemak, what else do you have? Bak kut teh, you know. And this fatty food gives rise to high cholesterol in the blood. And high cholesterol in the blood can block blood vessels, and that will give rise to heart attack again or stroke. Okay, so all this craving for food is a source of our illnesses, physical illnesses. Okay, hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, kidney failures, all this, if you look and trace back, it's all due to our craving for food. Not entirely, because there are also some genetic component to it. Sometimes if your parents have it, you are likely to get it. Not your fault. Okay. But by and large, we can control our craving, and so we can control the levels of diabetes, for example, or sugar or salt that we take in. Okay, so craving, if we look at it from this aspect, this perspective, is the cause of our physical illnesses. Okay. But there are also cravings in other ways. Okay. We not just crave for food, we also crave for a certain lifestyle. In our mind, to be successful in life, there is a certain level of achievement we need to get. For example, we think that to be successful, we need to have a big house, maybe a bungalow or a semi-D. We need to drive big cars, BMW, Mercedes, I don't know, whatever new that we have, continental cars. Maybe we need to wear branded clothes together with some branded accessories, with some branded makeups. These are our vision of what a successful person is. Of course, it did not necessarily be true. Okay, but we crave for it anyway because that has been imprinted in our mind. That is what a picture of success is. So in a way, we crave success, and when we crave this kind of success, we work ourselves to the ground to achieve it. We have no time to look after our health. We have no time to look after our actually emotional and mental health. And I see more and more patients who are overstressed from work. So they end up with anxiety, they end up with depression, they end up with a lot of worries. And these are mental and emotional illnesses as well. Okay, all as a result of our craving for certain things. Okay, so the Buddha was right when he says that craving is the cause of all suffering, including illnesses. Okay, we just need to look at it from a different perspective, and then we can understand it. The Buddha's teaching actually, when you listen to the Buddha's teaching, it can be very simple, and it can be very, very deep. And then, in the third noble truth, the Buddha says that there is a state, there is a cure for suffering, and that state is Nibbana. Okay, in other words, it's a state that is free from change. We are now living in a world where change is definite, but there is a state that you will not be bothered by change. Okay, that is the state of Nibbana. It is a state, it is not a place or anything else. And the Buddha also says that there is a way to reach that state, and he called that way the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, now in the Noble Eightfold Path, the Buddha starts with right understanding and then right thoughts. And then he also talked about right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And he divided this into three aspects. The wisdom aspect, which is panya, which is the first two, right understanding and right thoughts. And then the morality or sila aspect, which is right speech, right actions, and right livelihood. And then finally the samadhi or concentration aspect. Okay, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. As Buddhists, we are quite good, I think, with right speech, right actions, and right livelihood. We are quite aware of the fact that when we talk, we need to be very careful what we say. And we also know that what we do affects not only ourselves but other people. So we also try to be very careful with what we do. Of course, we also try to choose a kind of livelihood that is in accordance with the Buddha's teaching. All right. But I think that is where most of us end our awareness or end our mindfulness. We don't take very good care of our thoughts. But the Buddha says, mind is the forerunner of all states. In other words, it is from the mind that everything else starts. So if we want to take care of our speech, or we want to take care of our deeds or actions, then perhaps the best thing to do is to take care of our thoughts. Because from our thoughts, that's where it leads to our speech and our action. So if we begin from the root, then everything will fall into place. But that is something, why I said that we end right there is because that is the area of thoughts is something most people don't bother too much about. Yet that is the most important thing. In fact, the Buddha's teaching, the core of the Buddha's teaching is all about mind cultivation, mental cultivation. And the reason why he spends so much time on mental cultivation is because that is the key. That is the key to end your suffering. That is the key to end your illnesses. Because the Buddha says that of all the illnesses in the world, the majority of these illnesses arise from the mind. In fact, you can almost trace every one of it to go back to the mind. And the scientific world and the medical world are just beginning to understand that and are just beginning to realize the truth of that statement. We are beginning to understand that our mind, once a certain thought arises, whether it is positive or negative, will create a chain reaction. A chain reaction in the sense that when we have a thought, that thought triggers off some neurotransmitter in the brain cells, and trigger off some electrical charges in the brain cells. And that neurotransmitter and electrical charges went on as the first line of communication in the body. From there, it goes off to trigger off hormones in the body that moves into the bloodstreams. And these hormones are chemicals that goes to each and every single cell in our body. And there, at the end, where the cells are, the final message is sent to the cell. So, if your thought begins with a good thought, the final message to your cell is a good message, a positive message. And the response in the cellular area is positive. So in other words, what happens is that it ends up, the cell becomes healthier, the immune system becomes stronger, and there is no sickness appearing in the cell. On the other hand, if you start off with the negative thoughts, the same whole reaction, chain reaction occurs. Neurotransmitters, then the hormones, and then it goes all the way to the cells in every organ in our body. And negative changes occur. So that's how you get illnesses. When you have a lot of negative thoughts, when our thoughts are predominantly negative, then illnesses occur. And the illnesses that occur in certain place actually is symbolic of the negative thoughts that you have predominantly in your mind. Okay, I will talk about that in one of the examples I give. Okay, maybe I'll tell you the story now.